nurse. "He's asking for you," she said, calm but firm. "I think you should come now." I didn't brush my teeth. Didn't even put on socks. Just grabbed my keys, pulled on a sweatshirt, and shoved my feet into work boots. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, headlights slicing through the empty back roads of Lexington like I was chasing time. Dad had been fading for weeks. I'd been at the house almost every day since the hospice bed got wheeled into the living room. Watching him shrink into his skin, watching his hands tremble when he tried to hold a spoon, it gutted me. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. Kyle's black Lexus was parked out front. First time I'd seen it there in over a month. He hadn't visited since the second week of hospice. Always some excuse. Conference call, closing a deal, flying to Chicago for a client, that kind of thing. But now, at 3 a.m, that smell hit me. Not the scent of death exactly, but that dry chemical air that hangs when someone's already halfway gone. I walked through the front door and paused. The living room was empty. I heard voices down the hall. The study. Dad wasn't in his bed. He was slumped in the leather chair he always used to sit in when he paid bills. His head lolled slightly, and his eyes were barely open. Pupils like pinholes. Skin pale, damp with sweat. He looked like a ghost. Kyle stood next to him, holding a stack of papers, talking low and fast to some middle-aged woman in a pantsuit. She was holding a clipboard. Notary stamp clipped to the top. "What the hell is going on?" I asked, stepping inside. Kyle glanced up, didn't even look surprised. Dad had a moment of clarity. He wants to update the will. I froze. Now? In the middle of the night? He asked for it. Said he didn't want things to be unfair. "We're just getting it taken care of while he's clear." I looked at Dad. His lips were moving, but no words came out. His hand trembled as Kyle guided it toward a signature line. "He knows you're a good man," Kyle said, voice low and sweet like he was talking to a child. "Travis doesn't need the money. He's got a job. He's just a mechanic." My ears started ringing. I stepped closer and caught a glimpse of a pill bottle half jammed into Kyle's jacket pocket. Label turned inward, cap missing. "Kyle, what the hell did you give him?" He backed up a half step. "Nothing. Just his normal meds." "Bullshit," I snapped. "His pupils are like pinheads. Breathing's shallow. He's not lucid. He's loaded." The notary hesitated. "Maybe we should—" I didn't let her finish. I yelled toward the hall. "Kathy, I need you in here now." Everything broke open after that. Quick note. Before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue our story. Kathy rushed in, her shoes squeaking across the tile. She didn't ask questions, just went straight to Dad, checked his pulse, then his pupils. Her face went stiff. "He was given morphine at 2:05, she said, scanning the tablet she carried. "No reason for another dose." She turned toward Kyle. "Did you administer anything?" Kyle threw his hands up like a kid caught cheating. "Of course not. He asked for me. He said he wanted to fix things. I didn't touch him." Kathy didn't even argue. She stepped back into the hall and called the on-call doctor right there on speaker. Her voice was tight but steady. "Patient has unexpected CNS depression. Pupils constricted, breathing labored. Suspected overdose. Immediate review needed." While she focused on that, I turned back to Dad. His head was slumped forward now, a faint rasp coming from his chest. I knelt down and touched his hand, cold and limp. I looked up, and Kyle was gone. I stood fast and moved down the hall. Front door was open. I stepped out just in time to see him walking toward his Lexus with the notary at his side. She looked shaken, clutching her clipboard to her chest. "Hey!" I shouted. "What's in your hand?" He didn't stop. Just opened the car door and said over his shoulder, "You'll get your answers soon." Then he got in and peeled off like this was some kind of done deal. The notary followed in a beat-up Corolla, not looking back once. I went back inside. Kathy was adjusting Dad's oxygen flow and had already called for an emergency review team. His pressure's dropping, she said without looking at me. We're trying to stabilize him, but... I nodded, jaw clenched. Just tell me what you need me to do. She handed me a cold compress for his neck. Stay calm. Talk to him. Just keep him here with you. That night broke something in me. Dad never really woke up after that. He was semi-conscious for a few more hours, but couldn't speak. Didn't open his eyes. He'd squeeze my hand sometimes, just faint little pulses like he was still trying to hang on. 6 days later, it was just me and him again. The house was quiet, all the machines unplugged except for the oxygen. I sat beside him with that old Raymond Chandler paperback he loved. I don't even think he could hear me, but I read anyway, low and steady. His breathing slowed, then stopped. I waited a full minute before I let go of his hand. Kyle didn't come by. Not once. No call. No text. Nothing. At the funeral, he showed up late. Wore a navy blue suit with a pocket square like he was speaking at a press conference, not burying his father. Walked straight to the front row like he owned the place. I stood in the back. I didn't want to sit near him. He went up to the podium when it was time and put on a hell of a show. Voice cracking just enough. Teary-eyed but not messy. All the right words. Dad was a man of honor, he said. He built everything from the ground up. Taught us about integrity. About what it means to carry the Wade name with pride. And I promise, I will carry that legacy forward. People clapped. I watched his hands, steady, controlled. He'd practiced that speech, probably in front of a mirror in whatever overpriced hotel he was staying in. I didn't say anything to him after. Couldn't. Not yet. I just watched him shake hands with extended family like he was the damn governor. Aunt Linda cried in his arms. Cousin Jonah called him a rock. He didn't even look my way once. Not when he spoke. Not when the casket was lowered. Not when I placed Dad's old watch into the grave with him. That was the first time I saw the full scope of it. Kyle didn't just try to take the money. He tried to rewrite the whole ending. The version people would remember. The version where he was the devoted son, the grieving heir, the one who gave the eulogy. And for now, nobody knew any different. But that was about to change. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in George Miller's office. The same place Dad used to take me when I was a kid to sign school forms or deal with property taxes. Nothing had changed. Same leather chairs, same dusty bookshelf full of legal handbooks no one actually read. I sat stiff in the corner, watching the second hand on the wall clock drag its way through each tick like it was choking on time. Kyle walked in at exactly 10 o'clock, like he was arriving for a photo op. Custom navy suit, polished shoes, hair slicked back like he was on his way to a finance gala. Trailing behind him was a guy in a pinstripe suit who looked like he practiced smirking in the mirror every morning. "Travis, good morning," the guy said, offering me a tight handshake. "I'm Jason Atwell. Pleasure. We're here to keep things smooth today." He called me sir 4 times before he even sat down. George Miller, gray hair, wire-framed glasses, still looked like a guy who preferred handshakes over emails. Leaned forward from behind his oak desk. He didn't offer pleasantries. "There are some issues we need to clear up," he said flatly. "Some discrepancies regarding the documents submitted by your side. Mr. Atwell." Jason chuckled like it was all beneath him. "We have affidavits from a licensed notary. Signatures are intact. Witness present. I'm not sure what we're disputing here, George." George didn't blink, just opened a folder and pulled out 2 sheets of paper. "This is a medical report from Mr. Wade's attending nurse the night in question, and this one is from the hospice physician on call. Both confirm his morphine levels were dangerously elevated beyond prescribed dosing." Jason shifted in his seat. Kyle sat up straighter, jaw tight. George kept going. "Now this," he slid over another document, "is a notarized statement from that same notary. She says she felt pressured, that Mr. Wade was barely responsive and didn't seem to understand what he was signing." Kyle's knees started bouncing. Jason opened his mouth. George raised a finger. "I'm not finished." He reached into his bottom drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope. This is a legally valid last will and testament, dated 5 months prior to the night in question. It was signed, witnessed, and notarized during a clearly documented lucid period. Your father requested I hold it unless any attempt was made to submit a conflicting version. He broke the seal, laid the pages flat, started reading. To my son Kyle, I leave the sum of $1. I felt it in my chest before I processed the words. George continued. May this serve as a reminder of the value of character and the cost of greed. Silence. He turned the page. To my son Travis, I leave the family home, all assets contained within, my personal savings, and any remaining investments or accounts in my name. Kyle's mouth opened. No words came out. He looked stunned, like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Jason cleared his throat. We'd like to contest the... You're welcome to, George said, stacking the papers neatly. But just know, all supporting documentation has been archived, including witness logs from the nurse, video timestamps of your client's presence at the property, and verified medication records from hospice. I'd advise you to tread carefully. Kyle's forehead started to shine. His lawyer leaned in and whispered something to him, probably trying to talk him down, keep him from losing it. But Kyle just sat there, frozen. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. George leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. Gentlemen, if there's no further business, I think we're done here. Jason stood, still trying to keep the smug act going. We'll be reviewing our legal options. George didn't even look at him. Be my guest. Kyle got up slower, like gravity had doubled on him. He didn't look at me. Just adjusted his watch and walked out without a word. But I saw it. That flicker of panic in his eyes. He wasn't just shocked, he was cornered. And George? He wasn't done yet. He looked at me as the door shut. There's one more thing, he said, turning toward the credenza behind his desk. Your father left behind a message. I didn't move. Just waited. I knew whatever it was. It was going to hit hard. He reached for the remote, but he didn't press play. Not yet. Just a heads up, George said quietly. This part, he wanted you both to see. I leaned back in the chair, heart pounding. I knew the truth already. But Dad had recorded the proof. George reached for the remote, turned the monitor toward us and said, There's also this. The screen lit up. Dad appeared, sitting in this same office. Different light, same chair. He looked thinner than I remembered, skin tighter over his cheekbones, eyes sunken but steady. He wore that old flannel he never threw out, the red and gray one with the elbow patches. His hands were folded on the desk in front of him. No papers, no distractions. Just him. He looked straight into the camera and took a breath like he already knew how much this was going to hurt. If you're watching this, then Kyle tried to change the will, Dad said, and I'm guessing it didn't go quietly. Kyle shifted next to me. I didn't look at him. Dad kept going, voice steady, low, sharp. Kyle, I know about the gambling. I know you lied to investors. I know you tried to take out a private loan using a family trust that doesn't even exist. I heard Kyle suck in a breath. I didn't bring it up because I was trying to give you time to fix it. But then you stopped coming around. You only ever called when money was tight. Dad's voice cracked just once. And then you started sniffing around the paperwork, asking what accounts were in whose name, talking to lawyers behind my back. He shook his head in the video. I'm not stupid, son. And I wasn't gone yet. Kyle tried to say something, but nothing came out. Just an open mouth and silence. Travis, Dad said next. His voice softened. I know this isn't what you wanted. You never asked for the house. Never asked for anything, really. But I want you to have it. You were there when I couldn't stand on my own. You sat with me. You read to me. You didn't look away. I blinked fast. My throat was starting to close. I'm proud of you, Dad said. You work hard. You treat people right. You showed up. That's all I ever wanted. There was a pause in the video. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the desk now. Kyle, listen to me, he said. You're not a bad person, but you've made bad choices. And if you don't stop this now, you're going to lose more than money. You're going to lose the people who still care. The screen froze for a second, then faded to black. No music, no closing message. Just silence. Kyle looked like he'd been hit by a truck, pale, sweating, eyes wide. His lips moved, but no sound came out. George didn't wait. Changing a will while a patient's under increased sedation? He said, sliding another folder across the desk. That's elder abuse. Filing a forged will? That's a felony. You understand what that means? Kyle swayed in his chair. Mr. Atwell, George added, if your client would like to speak, now would be the time. Jason Atwell didn't say a word. He just stared at Kyle, who suddenly leaned forward like he was going to throw up, then collapsed straight off the chair and hit the carpet with a thud. Dead weight. No sound but the clock ticking. Jason jumped up and knelt beside him. Kyle? Kyle! Kyle groaned, rolled onto his side, hand gripping his chest. His eyes were fluttering. George stayed seated. You'll want to get him some water. We'll wait. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at the empty monitor where Dad's face had been. That had been his last move. Not a threat, not a plea, just the truth. Laid out plain. Kyle didn't just fail to steal the will. He failed in full view. And Dad made sure the world would see it. He didn't scream. He didn't rant. He just told the truth with the kind of clarity that hits like a hammer. And Kyle? He broke under the weight of it, right there, on George Miller's rug. While Kyle lay there on the floor trying to pull himself together, Jason fumbled for his phone, probably about to call a medic or spin some legal fire drill. George didn't flinch, just reached into a drawer and slid a folder across the desk toward me like we were closing out a regular meeting. For you, he said. I opened it. Inside were a few old photos, some handwritten letters in Dad's blocky pen, and a sealed envelope marked, Kyle, when you're ready. I stared at that envelope for a long second. Kyle finally sat up, leaning against the side of the chair. Ghost white, sweat soaking through his collar. Jason knelt beside him, whispering fast, legal language wrapped in damage control. But before he could finish a sentence, George shut it all down with a voice that cut through the room. You want a contest? He said calmly. Great. We'll present the video, the nurse's statement, the doctor's toxicology notes, and the notary's signed confession. We'll show timestamps, surveillance, hospice logs, and then I'll personally call the district attorney. Jason closed his mouth. Kyle blinked hard, like he was trying to reboot his brain. You don't get it, he muttered, barely loud enough to hear. You turned him against me. I stood up, walked over slowly, folder still in my hand. No, I said. You did that yourself. You stopped showing up. You only called when you needed money. You treated Dad like a bank account, not a father. He stared at the floor. I was in deep, he mumbled. I owed some people. Real people. I didn't know what else to do. I snapped. So you drugged our dying father and shoved a pen in his hand? That's what you came up with. His eyes finally met mine. I thought he'd already given up. I thought he wouldn't even remember. I didn't think. No, you didn't. He dropped his head again, wiping his face with the sleeve of his dress shirt. The sharp, polished version of him from earlier. Gone. What was left looked like a kid who'd finally gotten caught and didn't have a single trick left. You think he wouldn't have helped you? I asked. He paid off your debt twice before this. You think he wouldn't have done it again? If you'd just shown up like a damn man and told him the truth? Jason stood, quietly gathered his briefcase, and stepped back toward the wall. He knew this wasn't legal territory anymore. Kyle didn't speak, just sat there breathing like each inhale hurt. I pulled the sealed envelope from the folder and held it out. He hesitated. What is it? He asked. Something he wanted you to have, I said, but only when you were ready." He looked at it like it might burn his hand. Eventually, he reached out and took it, fingers trembling. I didn't watch him tuck it into his jacket. I didn't care if he ever opened it. George stood and started organizing the rest of the papers. "There's no further business here," he said simply. "Mr. Atwell, if you and your client would like a copy of the legal record, I'll send a digital file." Jason nodded, still rattled. "We'll be in touch." George looked at him square. "You won't." Kyle stood slow, like gravity was still messing with him. For a second I thought he might say something that mattered. An apology, maybe. A full sentence of real regret. Instead, he muttered, "He always saw the worst in me." I didn't let it slide. He saw all of you. That's why it hurt him so much. He winced like I'd slapped him. I moved toward the door. "You've still got a choice," I said without turning around. "You can stay the guy who tried to rob your dying father, or you can figure your shit out and earn back what little you haven't ruined." I didn't wait for a response. Behind me, I heard the envelope crinkle as Kyle tightened his grip on it. And that was the last thing I saw before I stepped outside. Him, holding that one sealed letter like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Kyle followed his lawyer out, clutching that envelope like it might save him from drowning. He didn't say another word, just walked down the hall like someone heading into a sentencing. His threats didn't mean much after that. "You'll hear from us. This isn't over." All of it rang empty. George handed me a backup flash drive and said, "Let me know if he even thinks about contesting. But I doubt he will." He didn't. 3 days later, I got a call from the hospice director. She said the state had quietly opened an inquiry into a flagged medication event. That was their way of saying someone had reported the morphine levels from that night. I knew it wasn't George. I didn't ask questions. They didn't call me again. Didn't need me. Between the nurse's logs, the doctor's report, the time-stamped camera footage, and the notarized statement, they had what they needed. Kyle kept his head down. He went silent. Completely off the grid. 6 months went by. Then I got a voicemail from cousin Denise. Voice low, like she was reading a secret. "Hey, just so you know, Kyle's in Florida now, Sarasota, managing some condo building. Apparently filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks ago. Thought you'd want to know." I didn't call her back. I didn't need the details. The house was mine now. It was quieter than I expected, but not the kind of quiet that makes you lonely. More like everything had finally stopped spinning. I'd ripped out the carpet in the old billiards room and replaced it with polished concrete, installed overhead lights, bought a couple workbenches. That room became something else. I partnered with the local trade school and opened it up every Saturday for kids who didn't have a garage or a dad who taught them how to change oil. I started with just 5 of them. 2 didn't even know how to hold a wrench. 1 kid tried to use a drill backwards. But they showed up, week after week. I kept showing up too. Dad's old tools lined the back wall. Everything cleaned, sorted, labeled. Exactly how he used to do it. I took the money he left behind, the savings, the stocks, all of it, and set up a fund in his name. Nothing flashy, no billboards, just a steady pipeline of donated toolkits and equipment for 2 local tech programs. Every drill, socket set, and torque wrench had a small silver tag on it. Donated by the Wade Family Legacy Fund. Some of the kids asked who Wade was. I'd just nod at the wrench hanging over my workbench. That was Dad's. Old, scratched, handle worn from decades of use. Right beside it, I kept Kyle's pen, the one he tried to use that night. Gold trim, engraved initials, still faintly smelling like cheap cologne and desperation. Both tools in their own way. One built something. One tried to steal it. Some days I'd catch myself staring at them, both sitting there like 2 sides of a story no one else really knew. But I knew. And I made sure the kids understood one thing. Tools don't define you. What you do with them does. One Saturday, a quiet kid named Jaden asked, "Did your dad teach you all this?" I paused, then nodded. "He taught me the most important part." "What's that?" "Show up," I said. "Even when it's hard. especially then. He didn't say anything, but he didn't look away either. It hit me then. Legacy doesn't always come with a plaque or a name on a wall. Sometimes it's a socket wrench passed hand to hand. Sometimes it's showing a 16-year-old how to fix a stripped bolt instead of tossing the whole thing. I wasn't trying to replace the past. I wasn't trying to pretend the damage never happened. But I was building something, and this time, it was solid. One night after class, I finally opened the last drawer in Dad's old desk, the one I hadn't touched since the funeral. Inside were the letters, each one sealed in a plain envelope, names written in Dad's block handwriting. One said Travis, another just said, "For my grandkids, when they're ready," and the third, Kyle. I didn't open his. I held it for a minute, felt the weight of it. Not heavy, but not light either. I don't know what Dad wrote in there. Maybe an apology, maybe a last warning. Maybe just the kind of truth you can only give someone when you know you're gone and they can't argue anymore. Whatever it was, I slid it into the safe. Maybe one day Kyle will come back for it. Maybe he won't. People ask sometimes if I feel like I won. I didn't win anything. I lost the same man Kyle did. The difference is, I got to know him again before the end. Kyle never did. Dad didn't leave me money because he liked me better. He did it because I was the one still standing when it all fell apart. I was there when it counted. That's what he was protecting. Not the house, not the bank accounts, just what mattered. Kyle always thought Dad wouldn't see through him, that he could bluff his way through anything, smile enough, fake the right tone, say the right things at the funeral. But Dad saw all of it, and he still forgave him. That's what finally broke Kyle, not the will. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're off the hook. It just means someone saw you, the whole you, and didn't stop loving you. I hear Dad's voice sometimes. That last line from the video loops in my head on quiet nights. Forgiveness doesn't mean approval, but it means I still see you as my son. I wonder if Kyle hears it too. In that condo office down in Sarasota. No investors to impress. No audience to fool. Just a man with a conscience and a letter he might never open. Me? I show up. Every Saturday. Rain or shine. Wiring classes up to 11 students now. One of the girls, Maria, figured out the whole fuse box project without needing my help. When she got it lit up, she looked over like she was waiting for approval. I just smiled and said, "Did it work?" She grinned and nodded. That's your answer. Dad would have liked that. Not because it was perfect. Not because I did something big. Because it was showing up. That's what he believed in. Not just being around when it's easy, but sticking it out when it's hard. That's the part of him I inherited. Not the house. Not the fund. Not the will. Just that one thing. Sometimes the best thing you can leave behind isn't a dollar or a title. It's the proof that you knew exactly who someone was and loved them anyway. Now you tell me, do you think Kyle ever deserved a second chance? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.